A lot of news commentators are comparing Joe Biden's Build Back Better plan to FDR's New Deal. In this video, I'm going to explain to you how America screwed Black Americans out of $4.4 trillion in the last New Deal. You don't believe me, do you? Wait till you get to the end of this and then tell me what you think. Back in 1934, the median income of white households was $1,500 a year. But the average black household median income was $474. That's 1/3. Now, things were cheap, but they weren't that cheap, and we were in what you call a depression. And it wasn't just a depression, it was the Great Depression. White people were jumping out of windows and shit. Black people were doing what we always do, starve. And so were white people too. As a response to the economic impact of the Great Depression, Congress passed a set of laws to provide economic relief and to pave the way for millions of Americans to have a real life. A middle-class America. The New Deal. What was in that New Deal, Tim? Minimum wage. Minimum wage, John. That's a great thing, right? Minimum wage. A maximum number of work hours a week, okay? 40-hour work week, okay? Before then, just work you till you fell out. Then they fire you and hire somebody else. You need to be able to work 60, 80 hours. Legalize labor organizing. Up till then, they just beat the shit out of you. You ever seen the movies where people trying to strike or protest low wages and there'd be a bunch of guys meeting with baseball bats and clean their clocks? They want to assist farmers. Old age insurance or Social Security. Never existed before this. You got old after working, putting all your money in or whatever. Nothing for you, Johnson. You'll die in the gutter. The objective was to create a middle class. Turns out, a white middle class. It was opposed in Congress by representatives from the southern states. The representatives in the southern states says, no, we ain't gonna let you do this. We're not gonna allow you, FDR, to create a middle class unless it's a white middle class. So we got a couple amendments to your little bill there. Yeah, we like the bill, but you gotta make 2 changes if you want us to vote on it. If you want us to let it pass. You gotta exclude agriculture workers from benefits. Who were agriculture workers? Black folks. What, you think we had office jobs? They were working at Foot Locker, bitch? Huh? What were we doing? Running a McDonald's, a franchise, Wendy's franchise, a Chipotle? No. They also wanted to allow the distribution at local state levels. Can you imagine trying to pry, you're a black person in Jim Crow South, trying to pry money out of Alabama? You're more likely to get lynched in Alabama than you were to get money out of the state of Alabama. And a lot of niggas did get lynched. The amendments to the New Deal eliminated 65% of the black labor force. That's number one. 65% gone. The exclusion of agriculture workers. Number 2, allowing the southern states to take care of the money locally. Allow them to discriminate against the rest of black folks. That's right, they were able to exclude them from the benefits, in the southern states at least. This is this thing called the Wagner Act. It legalized labor organizing, but non-whites were excluded. Yeah, so the whites could organize labor, the blacks could not. High-paying union jobs and benefits, medical care, job security were denied to non-whites up well into the 1970s. Not the 1940s, not the 1950s, 60s. No, not 1970, into the 70s. Now, some of you have been around since then, like me. I was a kid, I didn't know shit. I was a baby, basically. But, when you're having a conversation with one of these boogaloo boys that they want us to talk to and de-radicalize, who don't understand what's going on with the blacks, let them put this in their arsenal of negotiating tactics to somehow convince the skinheads and the hateful racists why we are where we are. See, I'm not giving you this information for you to convince any racist bastard what's going on. I want you to know what we're up against. I want you to know where you are. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay if you want to help somebody understand, but this is for you to understand. Because what I run into too many times are black people blaming black people. See, look guys, my goal in everything I do is not to convince white people of reality. What's more important to me is convincing black people of reality. Because too often, I meet black people that shit on black people. They don't understand what's going on. They condemn each other and themselves for our condition in this country. They condemn their brothers and sisters. They turn on one another because they don't understand what America did. You think this is accidental? You think they accidentally excluded us? That they didn't mean to do what they did? Like they had no end goal in mind when they took you out of Social Security, kept you out of Social Security, out of labor organizing, out of medical benefits. That was an accident? No. It was done to achieve a certain result. That's why it was done. The minimum wage hurt black workers. Why? A lot of the white business owners didn't feel that black people had enough skills to get paid minimum wage, so they just fired them. If for 5 generations did not allow black people to learn how to read, and then you did not provide adequate schools, right? Or schooling in general, and you have no access to skilled jobs to learn a trade, now you got a bunch of people working at low jobs, low-skilled jobs, low-skilled labor. Now you got a requirement to pay a minimum wage. White people just said, fuck them. I just hire some more white people, pay them minimum wage. I'm not going to pay black people who I don't even think are human. I'm not going to pay them minimum wage. So you hear conservatives talk about how minimum wage hurts workers. What they mean are black people, but they don't want to say it. They also don't want to admit that white people don't think that black people are worth minimum wage. Farmers. 40% of black workers were sharecroppers and tenant farmers. The Agriculture Adjustment Administration, acreage reduction, hit blacks hard. Farmers made more not farming. Where were our jobs? Farming. Now they don't farm and collect money, and now, I don't know, 100,000 blacks were evicted in 1933 and 34. At the same time, FDR refused to pass an anti-lynching act and to pass the law against the poll tax. So we got 500,000 blacks fired because of minimum wage. The employers didn't want to pay black people minimum wage, so they fired them, 500,000. And then you got another 100,000 black farm workers fired, and you got and you got people getting lynched. All this happened at the same time, and then people go, why is there crime? People got to try to find a way to eat. People got to try to find a way to live indoors. I know it may not matter to you, per se. I always say, man, black people are a miracle. Our survival has been a miracle. When you see a successful black person, and we all know successful black people is different than successful white people. Being vertical, raising your kids, not being in jail, and having enough money in the bank that you could be off for a week, that's kind of successful. Considering all the shit laid in your path and your ancestors. And when I say ancestors, I'm not even going back far, dog. This is the 70s. Stuff your parents might not have taught you about. They dished out $50 billion in federal money. Big important. B with a billion. Billion with a B. The New Deal dished out $50 billion in federal money through 33 through 40, equivalent to $570 billion today. How much did we get? Like 5%. If that. I don't even want to guess 5%, because I just told you all the ways they were making sure we got none. So I don't even want to say 5%. $50 billion in today's money would be $570 billion going into strictly white economy. America's economy into white hands. Controlling businesses, access, distribution, means of production, These exclusions of agriculture and domestic workers, can't forget that, excluded domestic workers as well. No New Deal for them. Housekeepers, maids. In the Social Security Act of 1935, cut black workers $145 billion in today's dollars. No Social Security. I think it's becoming really obvious that they didn't want us to survive. One research study estimated the cost of labor market discrimination against black Americans from 29 to 69 will be approximately $1.6 trillion. But see, that was in 1983. In today's dollars, that will be $4.4 trillion. $4.4 trillion. That's how much the discrimination that we endured just between 29 to 69, 40 years. That doesn't count all the years of slavery. So when we start talking about numbers like 20 trillion, drop in a bucket. Got you a quarter of the way there just on labor discrimination. Alone by itself, not including all the atrocities, all the other shit, not including mass incarceration, not including lynches, not including slavery at all, Jim Crow, just this, just labor discrimination. Just this. Social Security. New Deal. So when you're having these conversations with people, when it comes up, and you feel the need to respond, first of all, I don't think you always have to respond. You don't always have to. Someone's trying to gaslight you. Maybe the fact that you know what they don't know, maybe that'll be enough. But if you feel you need to respond, you can bring up the New Deal. You can bring what in the New Deal specifically we were not allowed access to, that they were allowed access to. If you back in the 40s, if you're spending $50 billion, someone got that money. These are the same people that say black people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. These are the same people that say, why aren't you doing better? What's wrong with you? You must not want anything. Oh, you wanted somebody to hand it to you. Isn't that what you say, Facebook people? That's what my conservatives on Facebook always say. You want somebody to hand it to you. You want a handout. Oh, you mean like your parents got? You mean like your grandfather got? Your grandma got? Huh? You mean that thing that FDR gave your grandparents so that you could have the house that you inherited? Yo, you mean that? Oh, you mean like you? When we could talk more about the GI Bill and several other policies by the federal government. See, my claim, when we talk about reparations in a black agenda, we ain't talking about individual white people saying the word nigga in front of Walmart, outside of a Best Buy, in a parking garage. That's disgusting shit. I get tired of Karens and Kens. They piss me off too. But when we talk about it, who we talk about? We're talking about structural. We're talking about government-backed, either by law or practice or policy, deliberately to stop the growth. If you write somebody out of having access to this type of money, you are doing that intentionally with a goal in mind. Disenfranchisement. When we say being disenfranchised, that's what we talking about. And that shit's clear as day.
Pause. Wait, hold up, pause. No debate, no applause. Tired of the wait, man, we need a revolution, but you